in a while. It's been a little while since I've played mech, so I'm thinking of going back to it soon in one of my matchups. I'm not really sure which. I might do it against Zerg for a while again. Make me the lobby host, so right click on my name in the lobby, promote to lobby host.
Promote to lobby host. Gotcha.
All right, got the daddy pants on, I can drive.
I think this is the first time I've watched a replay with someone. So I'm like not used to the UI.
Yeah. All right.
All right, I can see your camera, right? Like I can log on to. Like, can I follow what you see?
No. No.
Oh, okay.
You can lock onto your own camera, but I'll just be kind of telling you what we're talking about anyway and stuff.
Okay.
But for now, just looking at your control group answers and bringing that up here. So command center's on 1. You put your production on 2 and you tab to select. Okay, so you go barracks, factory, starport all in the same control group. No worries. Some pros do that. I personally do barracks on one hotkey and then I do factories and starports on another one. Just
I see.
I like that. I don't know, whatever. But I know some pros do it your way, so it's not like this is wrong or anything like that. That's fine. Main army is 3. Secondary army is 4, and you tab for spellcasters. So I hate tabbing for controlling anything. I like
it's such a cluster.
Yeah, it's so easy to make mistakes with. And I saw your note about ghosts in late game TvP and struggling to use them. And I was like, yeah, this is something why I immediately was like, ooh, how long ago were we using F2 a lot? You know, like I immediately asked those questions because I honed in on this. Or I was like, okay, I want to see that because I find it's quite inconsistent. It's easy to screw up as well, right? Like it's very easy to just make mistakes on the tabbing between control groups. So I think definitely it's usually better to not. That being said, say you've got like Widow Mines as your main. I mean, to be honest, we're talking mech more. So let's say you've got like a tank Hellbat army. Maybe there's like some mines and Thors and other things in there. But realistically, it's just about sieging the tanks, right? Is like the main thing you need to quickly do in battles. Yeah. Is there anything else that comes to mind?
I like control click the tanks and then siege them. Same with the Widow Mines. Okay,
that's like good. It's nice to have them on another control group if you can get used to that for like quick sieges in certain scenarios. But to be honest, I don't really ever do that when I'm playing mech, even though I do that with bio, like, because there's like, you know, the sudden bio tank positioning, but I think I just put more focus on it when I'm playing mech, because like you kind of need to anyway. You're rarely like running forward into a surprise angle, getting between their bases, say in TvT, and then, you know, sieging up.
Right, it's more like a slow push ahead.
Yeah, usually like your opponent's, you know, in front of you and able to position, though it can be nice. So I think control clicking for that is fine.
And like, yeah, the tanks are like reasonably big enough for me to do that. With Widow Mines, it's much harder.
Yeah, it's easier to misclick on mines. That's a good point. That is definitely something which I screw up in the latter stages of TvP a little bit, where sometimes I use that bottom display bar instead. You know, where you can click on the green icons down the bottom.
The control icons?
Yeah, so you can actually control click there. Like if you've got your stuff selected, you can, you know, control click on the Widow Mine picture in the bottom and then do that.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
However, if your army is so big, the Widow Mines might be on the second screen or the third screen. So then you're going to have to tab to it, which makes things, as I've said, never enjoy tabbing as something you do as a regular piece of your micro. I feel like it's just a bit slow, a bit awkward, a bit inconsistent.
Yeah, and it doesn't, if I control click the green icon, it doesn't really give me much like positional awareness of where they actually are. So I kind of like if I'm pushing with tanks and widows, I usually siege the front one first and like let the ones further back kind of catch up.
Yeah.
So stuff like that.
Awesome.
I think that's another reason why I kind of like siege them manually. Same with the Widow Mines.
Yeah, the only time you need to siege an entire control group of tanks is when you get surprised, right? So it's definitely nice to have them all on a hotkey, but because you're using the overridden control group stealing, how long have you been using that one as well, by the way?
Control group stealing for quite a while. I think several months. My friend told me about it.
and so you're using that like instead of the regular one, right? So every time you do like control 1, it like steals units onto control 1, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool. So, because with that, like, obviously you can't have overlapping control groups, right? You can't put tanks on 3 and 4 at the same time. So, it does take that away, but It's like a bonus thing, really. I think it's so niche, it's not important. So I
see.
agree.
Yeah.
I think what you're doing is way better there. Your ability to quickly box a bunch of tanks and hellbats and send them back to your main to defend a drop. You know, steal a Viking off your control group and tell it to go land in a mineral line, etc., etc. This stuff is so valuable. So, excuse me, sorry. So yeah. Okay. So in terms of that, I think your control groups are pretty good. You've got your third and fourth kind of, you know, extra control groups on numbers 5 and 6. Yep. Which, you know, you could use one of those as like a ghost hotkey in TvP.
Yeah. I think about that too.
Or you could even, I mean, depending on if you've got liberators or anything on control group 4, like if you're just on bio, which I know a lot of people playing just bio ghost at the moment with like mines. I guess in TvP, do you end up on that like mine liberator off your bio later on, or?
I actually don't really use mines in PvP, and not much liberator either, except for the first one to maybe harass.
Okay, so I guess that's something I want to give you a few notes on today. So I know we're watching a TvT, but why not do it now while it's come up before I forget? I was going to link this to you before, but I think I finally actually added my build order onto spawning tool, which it wouldn't work. It kept bugging for ages, but a different 3 racks, because you're doing a 3 racks, but it's a pretty all in 3 racks in TvP, and
Sometimes
that's
I transition out of it, but you're right. It's like if the push fails, you're kind of in a crappy spot.
Your upgrades are mega late, and from it wasn't written out exactly your follow-up, so I don't know the exact timings, but it sounded like from just the way you'd written it down that the order is like mega slow factory and medevacs as well, whereas like with the 3 racks, those are always late, and like every extra second they're late is like even worse kind of thing, so it gets really awkward. And oh yeah, TvP 3x macro opening, awesome. So I'm going to link that in chat. I'll link it in your document more importantly. So I'm going to just kind of write this down because we want to focus on these other matchups. But I figure, you know, let's give you some notes so you can work on that stuff yourself. Yep, and the way I'm going to do this in your document. So for those of you on the stream, I don't like to show you guys the document too much. I hope people watching don't mind. But I can always share some of those little sections of notes potentially later, but this is mostly for Kevin. So that's a TvP build, which is similar to what you're doing. It's a less all-in 3 racks, basically. Now, the key with that build is basically you hit just a little later, but with a few more units and +1 attack. Now, so you can still often just do big damage with that, right? Or just kill people, and I still do.
Like a much earlier eBay.
Yes. Yeah, that's the main difference. Very similar to your build order, but that faster eBay is what the big change up is. And then, so that's the first timing, but with this, it naturally has more built-in power points. And this is what was lacking from your write-up of your TvP, where you basically said, often I kill him with the stem. This is my follow-up in terms of buildings, but I don't really, you know, do well at that stage, or I'm not sure how to finish it, etc. You don't have any like built-in follow-up attacks, and that's what makes us strong as a Terran player, especially with Bio, is you kind of know the points where your army is strong and where you can hit and be really powerful. So especially against Protoss, what we can actually do is we can say, okay, the first attack is this 3 rack stim timing. The second one is with 2 medevacs, 2 liberators. Sometimes I go 4 medevacs and then add the 2 liberators, and 6+ mines. So there's a point there where after that first stim timing, you've built up your bio non-stop, but you've got a few medevacs for healing, but most importantly, you've suddenly got 2 liberators, which adds this real complexity to your army, like really kind of siege units, right? Where if they're sieged up, so like even look on this map. Look at your 4th base where that's building. Let's imagine that's your opponent's nexus down there. Okay. Ignore the fight going on in the middle of the map. We'll rewind. So you'd be. Can you see my signals? Go to everyone's camera. If you're on someone's camera, you can't see them.
Everyone.
So.
Yep, I see it.
Yeah. So you see that choke point where this Widow Mine is. Like, imagine you siege 2 libs like just in front of that kind of thing towards this nexus, and then you've got like a few mines spread underneath, and you got a shit ton of bio under there. It's like. It's such a hard position for the Protoss to fight
yeah,
into you. You see Zealot, like
you're-
Stalkers blink in and Widow Mines hit him, your Biostims and just massacres everything. Like, it's very hard. If you get sieged up with that sort of army, Gateway units are very inefficient at dealing with it.
I see. Yeah, I see why that's like a really good aggressive position if you're kind of like trying to poke at that third through that choke.
Yeah, it can be a little awkward against Colossi, in terms of, like, if you're set up between their bases, like you flank them or you drop in a mineral line, it's hard for them to, like, clear you out, but you can't really push through the Colossi if they're in front of your army, obviously, because they've got the range advantage there, unless you have, like, siege tanks or something as well. So that's important, though, because it gives us this idea of you've got 2 medevacs, you've got 2 libs, you've got 6 mines. That's, like, a natural thing, and the thing is, if you're going to be playing bio TvP, that's your most standard thing, is mines and liberators, because mines ruin charge lots and liberators are just awesome units in general. Now, if you start playing, the meta always shifts. Different levels, you know, different time zones that people happen to queue games. Everyone has their own meta, right? So I don't know what meta you're playing in. So it's up to you to kind of just keep an eye on, oh, I'm playing against Colossus like 96% of the time. You know, I need to be focusing more on Vikings, and I'm gonna do that, or I'm gonna go straight to ranged liberators because Widow Mines aren't good against Colossi, right? So it's up to you to kind of find a way to adjust all of this in a way that makes sense for you, right?
Right.
Okay, cool.
I definitely underrated Widow Mines for the longest time because I haven't been using them for that long actually. But I just realized, especially with like the drilling claws, how much damage they can do and how like they're pretty mobile as well.
Oh yeah. Ooh, I've got a coaching video. How to play TvP. Not sure if that's going to be exactly, but I'm pretty sure at some point in that one we'll talk about range lips. I'm going to link that to you as well for homework. Because I'm pretty sure we'll be talking about range libs in that one. And if that doesn't find it, definitely look through my YouTube channel. So you can always just give a search there. Give a search for all my Diamond Plus TvP videos. So any Diamond or Masters TvP coaching videos. And the range lib stuff and how to use libs plus the distraction squad is something we can cover. And we'll go over all of that in more detail later on, but I think definitely getting you into using range libs is my favorite way of TvP because it takes us overthinking the matchup and it says liberators work versus everything. Let's just get good at getting them out at a good timing, figure out how to use them in the correct way, and that's kind of our final stage, where the first stage is the stim attack and the second stage is that 2 liberator mine timing without bio. Yeah, and then you can go range libs eventually. But I honestly, just having the new build order, getting that opening down tight, still hitting a very tight stim timing, but then also following up with that big second attack a few minutes later, that should be your main focus, right? Most of your games will be won or lost here. Most games will be won or lost, by that second push that you go for. And I want you to just focus on working on this new opening, getting better at your macro, and I think you'll improve a lot here. With your bio TvP. So I think that should be really awesome. Do you have any questions, or you're like, actually I wanted to play a completely different crazy style where I go mass banshee mech in TvP, or like what are your thoughts on TvP?
Actually, no. What you said sounds good to me. I think I definitely don't use Widow Mines in TvP or Liberators nearly as much as I should. And I think I can, I'll look up the build order and basically do my macro practice against AI until I'm really familiar with it, and then kind of play it out on ladder.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually what I did for mech. So actually, I only started doing mech not that long ago. Actually, I used to do bio for everything.
Awesome. It's kind of cool to. It's enjoyable. It's painful at first, right? And then it's really enjoyable once everything starts to click, right? It's the initial investment of getting ravaged, and then you start pulling it together and you're like, oh, this feels good now.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I felt with mech, and then I played against the AI 20 times in a row just doing the build order. Trying to max out and get my upgrades and bases as fast as I can.
It's really good, right? Because that's actually the most important stuff to learn, because that stuff you'll hit every game, right? It's when to build stuff. But on its own, that won't win you games. And I think that's where a lot of people struggle is they go, okay, cool, I can practice the build. And they're like, well, I'm still not winning. So what's the point? And it's like, well, the thing is, like, you've actually overcome the biggest hurdle. If you've memorized the order of like, okay, third command center goes down now. Now I go for the double armory. You know the order of your buildings, and it's like automatic.
Right.
And then it frees you up to start adapting and sieging your tanks in the right position, right? And to make sure you've got your Widow Mines in the right spot, and you're spotting the pushes coming, you're reacting correctly. But all that stuff has to come off the basis of solid fundamentals, right? Too many of us fall into the trap of trying to jump to the fancy stage, and we're like, cool, I'm learning mech. And we're like focusing all our mental energy on like, do I go Thors or Widow Mines here? Like, I gotta counter the air army. I gotta go for like, I'll swap into Vikings now. And it's like, you're overthinking it, man. Get the basics down before you start doing all that stuff.
It's like for the build order, you should be making like the least amount of decisions during the game as possible, because that like requires mental effort.
Exactly. It's like the moment you're focused on that stuff, it's very easy to just screw everything up. All the basics just fall apart. And you're like, it doesn't matter how good your strategy is and your decisions are. Like, I chose the perfect composition. Like, why didn't I win? It's like, well, you just didn't have any units, or like you had the right units and you ran them into a choke point and they all died. Like, what do you think is going to happen, right? So this is cool, by the way, because you got these drilling claw mines and like the Thor. Like, this is like the ultimate winning the Viking War comp is always the Thor Widow Mine, right? Like a single Thor and like 4 or 5 mines mixed into an army. And your enemy's Vikings really should run the opposite way the moment they see that. Like, I learned this the last time I lost to a Villa on the ladder. I was like, normally I just overwhelm him with bio, and I know that's like the best way to play against him, and I also just enjoy that stuff. But I was like, you know what? I've been trying to get better. Like, I've been watching a lot of Hero Marine. I love the way he always wins the air war and then like leverages range liberators and stuff. And he's like so methodical, and he could be down 20 supply all game. But if you don't kill Hero Marine, he's just better at late game. And that was inspiring. So I was like, you know what, let's try more of this winning the air battle. And Villa taught me a quick lesson in what happens if you try to fight him in the air battle, because he doesn't even upgrade his siege tanks. Like, he doesn't commit to mech properly. And I was like, he's got so many mines and Thors, and like, 3 Thor hits hit like my Viking clump, or Widow Mine goes off and I lose like 20 Vikings, and I'm like, oh, okay, like, he's preparing for that game plan. But it really opened my eyes to just how powerful the sprinkling of that in is. So I can see you're pretty experienced with the mech play here. You are really focused on tons of Widow Mines, and that's like, they're such a funny unit, right? Because like, it's hard to like shove them in on an angle and get amazing trades, but you can start kind of peppering them out, spreading them through, and they create huge problems for your opponent. And that seems to be what you're doing.
Them, I realize, like, especially if you just scatter around the map, it gives you a little bit of vision, and every now and then they just like lose a medevac.
And against a bio player, like the Marines, like walk into 2 Widow Mines and you just kill like 40 Marines. You're like, always put them in pairs if you're up against a bio player, because then you get the splash damage does. Because it's like 40 damage is like the close circle of the splash, I believe. So you need 2 of those to make sure you take out an entire massive clump of Marines, and then it's pretty beautiful.
I see. I actually didn't think about that.
Yeah, I was.
It's like a 2-shot.
Yeah.
For against bio, gotcha.
Yeah, like, against mutas, it's 4 that you need.
I didn't know that.
Because I think it's because they're usually a bit more spread, so you end up only hitting with like the half splash with some of them. I'm not even sure, because I think it's got 2 rings of splash. I didn't even know. I just know 4 Widow Mines is the magic count. 3 always kills like a few mutas, or like 1 or 2 mutas, and then the rest it almost kills. And it's like, I should have had a 4th one in that clump. So yeah, I think 4 is normally my favorite. I do the same against Phoenix as well, just to make sure I finish them if it's up against like 2-star Phoenix. But that's not something you see too often outside of team games. If someone's 2-star Phoenixing you in TvP, there's some real weird shit that's happened.
Right.
Awesome. All right, so you used your army pretty well here, despite some dicey positions, and I like what you did. Looking at your production,
I feel
you've
like I
got
lost way more Widow Mines than I needed to, and probably produced more than I needed to.
you actually have four reactors. Oh my god.
Is that too many?
I mean, if you're planning on having mostly a Hellion, endless Hellion run-bys, Widow Mines all over, and more of like a sprinkling of tanks and Thors, which is what you've done in this game, it works really nicely. I would probably think like 3 reactors is normal. So,
see.
for your style, because I normally go 2 reactors and that's it, right? And then like if I suddenly want to build more Hellions, say I'm up against like Swarmhost, Hydra Bane or something, and I want to build an extra 20 Hellions, I'll just build Hellions out of even my Tech Lab factory. So I'll go 2 reactors and I'll go 6.
6 tech lab.
6 tech labs, yeah. I like big 8 factory production. A lot of players out there never get past 5 factories, and it's one of the fucking worst things. I hate it. I'm like, no! Why are you taking a 6th command center when you've only got 5 factories? Like, you just can't reproduce your army fast enough. But yours is pretty nice.
And it lets you like miss a few production cycles without, you know, too many consequences.
Oh, look at your factory positioning outside your 3rd and natural, by the way.
Outside my is that bad?
Click at the factory. Look at that full bar. That Thor can't get out, man.
Oh!
Yeah.
Oh, that's hilarious. I didn't even know.
Yeah, because you need double space gap to pop out a siege tank or a Thor. So you've always got to put that with 2 space gap on the left-hand side of it, because your add-on's going to block the right-hand side. Yeah.
Right. I mean, it totally makes sense now that you pointed out, but it's kind of funny. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, he's basically like bent, hunched over in the factory cage, and Thor's like, "Let me out!" He's just he's screeching, man. All right, cool.
It's
so
like I lift the factory.
yeah, he's like, "Let me out, man." So, anyways, that was a pretty good game. Stay in the. Did you leave the replay? Please tell me you stayed in. Good.
I'm still in.
Good discipline. All right. When you finish a game on ladder, by the way, do you click rewind?
I do. Well, sometimes I quit by accident and then I'll click watch replay.
Okay. I think it's such a good habit, right? To rewind, just to like very quickly be like, oh, was there a corner base? And how many workers did my opponent have? And check the upgrades. Like you just like ask those questions and you kind of like line up what you thought the position was in the game with what it actually was. And sometimes you realize you were way off. And those are like so important, right? Because playing StarCraft is very confusing when you lose games and it doesn't add up. And sometimes you realize you've missed something drastic, and just in a few seconds of pressing that rewind button. So, this is a barracks gas opening for you. So, you're going barracks gas. I thought it was gas first when I read your document, and it's straight into expand on the low ground. Yeah, you're gonna die against Reaper openings for sure.
Yeah, I usually like rely on the first 2 Hellions.
Yeah, they won't be out in
2
time.
Marines out of the reactor.
Proxy Reaper is going to ruin you every game. Even 2 Reaper and a Hellion will get in, kill an SCV or 2, and then get out before your 2 Hellions are out. They might even be able to like jump in your main and kill a few more. So if you want to do this sort of opening, we need to be doing gas first against a player like this, because your factory just ends up way too late. Because otherwise, yeah, Proxy Reaper will ruin you. So I definitely think that's going to shore up that weakness. It'll also just make your build really nice. Now, it will, of course, make you a little bit tighter on minerals, but so we want to swap build to gas first.
I see, and like basically that factory reactor Hellion is key, right? The timing of it, rather?
Yeah, because if you went gas first, your factory can start at 1 minute 55, while still having the expansion on the low ground, so it's still a super economic build, but these 2 Hellions would have been out at 310. Like 311, 312 if you do your opening
so
properly
like
and tie it.
almost 30 seconds earlier than what I'm doing.
About 20 seconds, yeah. Yeah, about 20 seconds difference, which, you know, we've all had 2 or 3 Reapers in a mineral line for 20 seconds, and we know how much damage that is.
Right.
So
Yeah.
do you want to have an economy left? Yeah, so that's pretty big. It's still tough. So, you know, to be safe versus Proxy Reaper, you need to keep that Reaper back behind your production, you know, so it can pull behind workers, you know, so it can pull behind SCVs and use them to buffer. And there's all sorts of complicated micro with that, but the important thing, of course, just getting those units out on time.
Right. I saw your
And,
note about
yeah.
like boxing the first SCV, and as soon as it takes a hit, like pull it back, so you have more buffer before SCVs die.
And because that's never going to work against 2 or 3 Reapers because they kill stuff so quickly, so you're actually basically doing that, like you're kind of mentally giving yourself the order, like you're already going to do that before it even takes a hit. And by the time you select it, click it back to a mineral line, it's like on red hit points and you barely kept it alive, right? And then you start pulling back the next one. And because you're already going to drag the box to select it or click on it, before it starts taking damage once again, if you do it well, you'll get it back just before it dies. So it's one of those things where it's like preemptive micro, because you know the Reaper player isn't like focus firing SCVs normally, unless you're playing Maru. They're just A moving, move back, A move back, A move, or move back, stop command. So they're just going to be like attacking whichever SCV is in the front of the pack. So you know ahead of time which one to pull back. If you pull 6 SCVs to fight, front one, pull back, front one, pull back, front one, pull back. And that micro can save you a lot of SCVs.
Gotcha. Actually, I've never used like preemptive boxing before, so it's an interesting mechanic.
Yeah, there's a few situations. You'll also use that same micro for pulling back your Reaper as it takes damage. So, like, they're always going to go after the Reaper, because if they get rid of that, they've got free reign over the mineral line. So there'll be a lot of you going with your Reaper, and you're almost like, you're on the fence of sometimes you'll do a shot, pull back. Run forward to attack, do a shot, pull back. Other times you'll wait for them to respond and then you'll pull back, but you'll be like, you're always like so poised to pull it out of there, right? Because keeping that Reaper alive, it keeps you alive until your Hellions are out.
Right.
Which makes a big difference. So that's going to change your build order up a little bit. Now you like to build a ton of Hellions, which definitely can keep you safe, and they can also run in the front sometimes and just kill workers. And that's what that last poke was about, right? Like, you went forward. Obviously, he's like, well, he's got concussive marauders in a tank. Like, let's just go home. But sometimes, I guess if there's like just a bunker, you might just run past and try to kill the SCVs in the mineral line and that sort of thing. Especially if the bunker's like, you know when you run into a bunker range and then you see how much damage it does? Do you ever do that trick? To see what's inside it?
Not enough. Yeah, I'm aware of it, but I don't think I pay too much attention to it.
If I don't see like a tank or a cyclone, I just see a bunker. I've got 6 or 8 Hellions looking for a run by. Yeah, I'm always going to do that where I go to run in, but as I enter bunker range, I'm paying attention to my Hellion. And if its hit points like just like disappearing, I'm like, there's 4 Marines in that bunker. And I might turn around and disengage. But I'm much more respectful. And sometimes your Hellion barely loses any hit points. You're like, oh, there's 1 Reaper or 1 Marine in that bunker. Like, that's not even a threat. I can ignore that bunker and just run past and kill all the Hellions, right?
I see. Yeah,
so
I guess I should start paying attention to that, because like in the case he only has 1 Marine, like the opportunity is too good to miss.
Absolutely. And with Hellions, that's part of your power. The real power of any reacted Hellion opening in this matchup is you can run in and kill a ton of your opponent's Hellions if they don't have quite enough defense, but also if they're doing like one of these 3 Reaper, 3 Hellion openings, they're just building them one at a time or anything like that, or they come across with like a Cyclone of Hellions, you just got overwhelming numbers and you've got superior mobility, so you can just jump on top of them. You can just be like, nope, jump forward and just kill all those units and take a really nice trade. So Hellion's kind of, this sort of opening from you, it really does force your opponent to just like lock down the hatches and be very, very safe. So it's kind of good of us to always poke with the Hellions, and gauge bunker damage. Obviously, you want to kind of just constantly develop your own rule set for that, right? You want to be like, there's a siege tank, always get out of there and run away. But maybe you'll be like, oh, if the siege tank is on the high ground, I'll actually still run in because it can't cover the mineral line.
Right, and like go behind the mineral line and the natural.
Exactly. And you might find, depending on the meta, this changes and you don't want to do this as much because they're Hellion dropping you as you arrive at their base or something. I don't know. Whatever. I'm just coming up with a random thing. I'm like, that sounds like a good scenario to Hellion run by them and just use your rally to defend. But I'm sure there's another example where you want to not commit to it.
Yeah. Well, I think you make a good point. It's like have a set of rules that you, rather than trying to make a decision on the fly, like spend 5 seconds thinking whether or not you're going to run it. I've definitely done that before.
Oh, yeah. Haven't we all? And it's good sometimes, right? Once in a while to be a bit intuitive and be like, yeah, let's just, play by play by my pants seat a little bit more, just go, try things a bit intuitively. But you always need to rein in that kind of intuitive play once in a while and be a little bit more systematic and base yourself off, solid rules so that we can build that stuff in. So poke with Hellions, gauge bunker defense and damage, and see if you can smash the mineral line. If they're playing, multiple Reaper Hellion pressure stuff, always try to hide your Hellion count.
Upgrade.
if possible, until you're ready to jump on them, right? And kill all their stuff. So the dream is them committing into your natural, right? Into your natural, and you're, 6 to 8 Hellions swamping them. Okay. So what's a variation to your build that could be really nice? Hellion drop. Plus run by natural at the same time, right? So you could do that.
I guess normally I use the Liberator for that role, like siege up in the main and then run by natural.
And that's a good way of doing it. And I like the way it didn't work too well this game because obviously he had really good defense against the Hellions and he was on top of it very quick. But that's a good way of doing it. It's just one of those things you might find like, oh, you know what? Everyone's always got a single Viking in the main or a single Cyclone, but that doesn't really defend 4 Hellions dropping in, and I can consistently kill 12 or 13 SCVs. I'm going to start doing this every game, while it's working in the meta for a bit. And then it stops working and you go back to this Liberator because the Liberator's working really well. So it's always good to have variations of our build that don't really change the build order, right? If we swap the Liberator for a Medevac, it's like, oh, you've got 50 more gas, 50 more minerals. But essentially it's like, it's an easy way to create more problems for our opponent, make the game more difficult for them, whilst letting us still practice pretty much the exact same build, but it gives us a different aggressive variation. And this is something where a lot of us fall into the trap, especially us Terran players, of our build stops working and we feel like we need to drastically, I guess mech doesn't work against Terran anymore. We want to get away from those like broad generalizations because then you lose all of the practice you've had as a mech player, right? The moment you start, saying, oh, I'm going to go play bio in this matchup, it's like, you're kind of starting from scratch a little bit again. And we'd much rather, put ourselves in a situation where we can keep playing a mech here, but we can make a small adjustment to our opening aggression to find more consistent SCV damage, and our build order still works. And this is especially useful against Zerg and Protoss, because we're usually the aggressor in the early game with our harassment, right? And as what we're doing becomes very popular in the meta, or we play the same opponent 20 times over a month on the ladder, because we always queue ladder at the same time every day because we're on the same schedule, that person just becomes so much better at blocking our opening pressure, and our builds stop working. And a lot of Terran players fall in this trap where we go, well, my opponent's race is Imba, my build doesn't work, this is shit, fuck, I need to change my entire build. And a lot of Terrans find themselves in a space where they're constantly relearning builds and styles rather than making real small adjustments to their opening pressure that can still find damage, right? And this is something, if you watch like Innovation, he'll play like the exact same 6 Hellion plus a Liberator opening versus Zerg every game. And you can watch him. I remember watching a series of him. I did like a video on it. This was like a year ago.
Wait, 6 Liberators and TvZ?
Six Hellions and a Liberator.
Sorry, I missed
standard pressure. Nothing that crazy.
I like your Medevac versus Liberator example because there's like basically no change to your build order, but kind of like gives you an opening depending on the meta. Because I like every time I try to make big changes, I just like screw myself over or get really confused.
Yeah, you kind of need to reinvest in the learning stage, right? Whenever you do that, you're like, oh, okay, I got to play a few more games against AI to get my build order down. Like, it's nice to make the small adjustment of the Medevac instead the Lib, and you might be a bit sloppy with your build a little bit after that for a few games, just because it changes the rhythm. But like 2-3 games in, it feels pretty natural, and you're like, oh yeah, cool, I got this. It's pretty easy. Like that Innovation example, I think it was him versus Rogue, GSL versus the World last year, I believe was the series. Every game he did the same opening, like literally 5 games in a row, I think it was. It's just the most innovation thing in the world. But it's like, who does this? Seriously. Yeah, exactly. Like seriously, and what was so funny is like, it was just like game 1, the Hellions run in the third, the Liberator hits the main. Game 2, the Liberators hit the third, the Hellions try to run in the natural. And like every game it just shifted ever so slightly. One game he did the Hellions and the Libs on the same base. Like the Hellions kind of ran in and the Libs came in from behind and sieged the mineral line. And it's just like, I'm looking at this and Rogue's responding pretty damn well, but I'm like, especially for you like ladder plebs, like people blind counter things and they rely on expecting things to come. And like most of us like, oh yeah, he's gone Hellions, he's going to run in my natural, and all my focus is there. And then 4 Hellions run in my main from the corner of my main. I'm like, shit, lose my whole mineral line. So it's very easy to feel like, oh man, they just shut down because they got a bunker and a tank at the front. And then, you know, suddenly that medevac changes it up. So I like this concept because you can apply this to all of your build orders a little bit, where you just like, let's just look for the small shift in the build order. Doesn't add a crazy amount of extra, you know, execution on my part, but they do need a very different response in their positioning to deal with it.
Right, it's like a small shift for you, but for them to deal with it is like a very big shift, I guess.
Yep. So that's a variation. You don't need to start working on that. It's just there for when your opening's feeling like it's not putting you in a good position consistently, right? And then you can start working on it. Other than that, let's just go through. Now, you wrote here with your build order stuff that you go second... Okay, let's go back actually a little bit earlier. So second factory comes down pretty fast for you. Let's look at that. So we end up going a bunker here, SCV's production.
All right, my second factory is just for the tank. It may be Cyclone, depending on... I guess in TvZ I go tank, cyclone, cyclone, tank, along with like 2 turrets.
Do you play a battle mech style against Zerg, or do you skip the cyclones against Zerg? Like Cyclone Hellions, like where you're driving a race car mech, people call it as well.
Oh, I see. No, just like the only maybe 1 or 2 cyclones early game.
Yeah.
For defense against air, but that's about it.
I like the 1 or 2 against Terran for like picking off a Raven, you know, locking on a siege tank early. It gives you really good maneuverability and stuff. I don't really like them against Zerg though. Like having a few cyclones early against Zerg, I feel like they don't really do that much unless we're gonna get like a really good count. Personally, I feel like you're better off getting just more siege tanks early. Though 1 or 2 is not the end of the world. Something we'll keep in mind though. I'm just gonna put a note here in your build order in bold. Sorry.
I guess if I'm worried, we'll build more Widow Mines.
Yeah, I mean, and just the turrets and getting a Thor out is like the most important thing there, right?
Right.
If your opponent's on 2 base and you're like, oh, it might be mutas and I want to just prepare and I'm just going to build 2 cyclones because I don't have the other tech up, you could choose to do that. I'd probably just speed up my eBay or something, but usually mutas are hitting quite late in the game. So I think it's usually okay to just wait for something else. So,
Gotcha. Yeah, that sounds good. So instead of like tank, cyclone, build at least 2 tanks.
Yeah, makes it much easier to secure your third if your opponent decides to do some, you know, roach speed aggression or something like that as well.
Right, that's true. Yeah.
Okay, so
I like need 1 at the natural, 1 at the third, and then only after that I can expand.
yeah, like you always keep the anchor on the high ground of your main base, so you've got the cover from up there and stuff. Which this map has the perfect tank position on the high ground, where you can cover your third and your natural.
That's where you can do that.
It's a lovely little nugget of defense you can put up there, and it just covers so much.
Like, these kinds of maps make such a big impact on where the Terran chooses to place the third.
Oh yeah.
Like it's almost always the one that's right under the high ground in the main.
Yeah. Okay, so second factory goes down. We normally then go third CC and then double armory, right? Double gas.
Third CC, eBay, double armory.
Okay, so one thing I'm a bit iffy about is that we're going double gas on our natural before going third CC, and I'm wondering, See, when I was reading the build order before, and I'm looking at it here, I felt like it was very middle of the road. And I still kind of feel that in terms of like, you're not really pushing your economy that hard, but we're also not going like super aggressive or anything. Like it's just, you know, a bit of Hellion Liberator pressure. So especially with the barracks gas opening, I feel like if we were able to squeeze in a third command center earlier, delay that second factory, you know, it would be pretty damn awesome because it would allow us to kind of, you know, deal with that. Now, the problem we can find ourselves in is a lot of people are going to be building, basically, I mean, what if your opponent goes a pretty basic standard thing, right? It's like, few Marines, a Cyclone. I mean, yes, he opened up with some Marauders, so he's a bit later than normal, but essentially like a Raven or 2, a few Vikings, a few tanks, you know, these pushes can be very scary. So it's something where, you know, having your tanks out of your second factory is definitely going to make you feel a lot safer, but I think you could very easily swap your first factory onto a tech lab. So one of the big
After I
things,
build like 4 or 6 Hellions, swap it on a tech lab, build a tank.
yeah, maybe even 8 Hellions, because the thing is, with your build, both TvZ and TvT, you're spending so much money on reacted factory units. And I think this is the thing which, more than anything, what we can get out of today, because this is going to cover both your matchups, is this slows down your production like crazy. A reacted factory is one of the most expensive production facilities in terms of minerals, because like Hellions and Widow Mines take 21 seconds to build, and they're 75 or 100 minerals each. Like whenever you're non-stop building out of that factory, it is just crazy how much minerals that chews through. Like it is insane.
Yeah.
So it's one of these things where like often you will pause production. Even if you're planning to build more islands, you'll pause for like 20, 30 seconds at some point on that factory, get your third CC down, get something else going, and then you'll restart production, right? And starting to be more aware of those pauses, especially as we get into the Masters kind of area of Terran play where you're at, starts becoming more important, right? And you'll also find that some games you probably subconsciously or like not maybe semi-consciously pause that production because of a certain situation in the game, and you get some other things down, you power a little bit, get up all your, everything else. But it changes the flow of your build drastically, right? It really does. Because like this command center could be down like, even earlier if we pause those Widow Mines, and so on. Now, normally we wouldn't build this bunker. You saw Marauders, you were like, what the frig is this? I'm totally down with the safety bunker. I like that as an adjustment here. I think it's a really good idea. But normally we wouldn't have that. Right. And if we can try to squeeze in an earlier third command center, okay, so I'm coming up with a plan, and like I said, this isn't like locked in. I'm figuring this out as I say it because I haven't played an opening quite like this as mech before in this matchup. I've always played it off a more traditional opening, not as Hellion heavy, and then going into the Hellion tank later. But I think what we're gonna do is an opening shift in your build order. So here's what I'm suggesting. I'm gonna write it down while we look at this. So what we're gonna do is we are gonna say second factory and gases on natural get delayed. All right, so that's the main thing we're scratching for now.
Both gases?
Yes, both gases on the natural. Okay. So the thing is, we still very soon after our third CC goes down, we want to still get those gases. We just want to like kind of shift the order a little bit. So what we're going to do is instead we're going to go, all right, third CC. So we're going to go, actually, well, more important, let's say 6 Hellions, shall we?
Oh man, I really like Hellion. I was thinking like 8.
All right, let's say 8. Let's say 8 Hellions, because then, especially if you do the medevac one, you can drop 4 in like the main, and then often if that gets deflected, you go back, you rotate that drop around to hit the natural. Like just exploring that concept. Like imagine you came in here, there's like a cyclone, you just turn around and boost away straight away. You can see where I'm signaling, yeah?
Oh, sorry.
Go to everyone's camera if you're not.
Yeah, can you do it again? Yep.
So you come in there, cyclone deflects you. And then you cue that, right? You're like, go there, go there, go there. And then you cue that to drop in like there or something, right? Or you come back around a different edge. You come back in the same edge of the main base 30 seconds later. But by that point, you've got 4 more Hellions that are also running in the back of the natural at the same time.
Yeah.
Right? Which you can't do at the same time as the first drop timing because you just won't have that many Hellions yet. But, if you do a secondary one, it's like, cool, we can do that. All right? So 8 Hellions gives you that 2-pronged option, as well as the ability to swamp your opponent building 3 Reapers and 3 Hellions, right? 8 Hellions on top of that just demolishes. You'll lose nothing, right? Awesome. Yeah. So I like that because it gives us that. And you're a Hellion Widow Mine boy. You're a Reactor boy. 4 Reactor Arcturus is what I'm going to call you from now on. So
that's good.
We want to stick to your own flavor to some extent.
I saw DeMuslim do a cool technique earlier where he's trying to do a drop in the main. It gets deflected, and he'll basically run the medevac in a circle, and he actually queue-ups the unload already.
I do that sometimes.
Basically like a comeback 30 seconds, drop again command.
Oh, in the same base though?
Yeah.
Cool.
He basically pulls a circle and then comes back right straight to the main. It's like, oh, that's cool.
I like that. There's like the mini meta of that where you're like, yeah, they're going to rotate to the other position because they expect me to come in from a different angle. So you just go into the fog long enough and then they're like, oh, what the hell, man? You just redrop the same spot.
I thought that was really cute.
Awesome. Ben's such a good player. His MMR has actually been so good lately as well. So
it's like
he's
6K plus.
I think he was like 6.6k the other day. He's been slaying it, and he's been way stronger against Protoss lately, which is cool because that was always his problem matchup. And like just the upgrade change seems to have helped him a lot. So anyway, 8 Hellions, then 3rd CC, then double gas on natural.
Right.
Now,
and then eBay double armory, I'd imagine.
yeah, you don't
Or
go a Raven by default, do you? Raven's like the sickest unit, and it's definitely something you're skipping at the moment. We can play without it for sure. Let me think about this. So because you want to get a Cyclone out if possible, yeah. Okay. I mean, with the Hellion style, you can get away with it a bit more, skipping that Raven. I kind of like it.
Yeah, I think
Thinking.
Ravens are really cool, but it's like I kind of hesitate with certain spellcasters. I feel like I just like shit my pants every time I try to use them. You know?
Yeah. Practice makes perfect, as always. And this matchup especially, they're ridiculous, but everyone's kind of building them, so it does turn into its own little dance where everyone else is going to have a lot more experience with it. And, you know, the Hellions being able to jump on top, definitely, like, you know, you can deal with this stuff. So let's go. Yeah, we can revisit that idea of maybe we should just always build a Raven in. Like at the moment, like every build has a Raven in it, and I'm sure there's like someone in chat. I'm not reading chat right now, guys, because this is a paid coaching session, but I really appreciate you all hanging out. Grim Reaper, thank you for the raid. The dirtiest cannon rusher on the EU ladder. Thank you, mate. I'm sure there's someone saying you need to go Raven in TvT. I watched, you know, Uthermal stream, and he said you're an idiot if you don't do it. And you know, just I'm sure at his level that's probably correct. But I do feel there's so much creative freedom in how you can play StarCraft, even up to a high GM level. And maybe when you're at 7k MMR, you lose a bit of that flexibility. But there's a guy called SOS and another guy called Haas who win tournaments, who I think would have something to say about that. And, you know, they kind of are living proof that you can do whatever the fuck you want in this game as long as there's some sort of inherent logic to it, right? So I think if we're not wanting to play Raven, that's totally cool. We definitely need that safety engineering bay. We'll then squeeze out 2 more factories and then double armory. So we're going to go 2nd and 3rd factory at the same time, and then the double armory, right? So you're getting your production up nicely, all right?
I see. So this is a 3 factory on 3 base, or should I add a 4th one for 3 base?
Once you get your 3rd base like landed and stuff, like you're going to be steadily adding another 2 factories and then another 2 or 3 factories at some point. So those 2 factories will both be tech labs. So that'll be 3 factories. And then at some point, we'll obviously go, you know, 2 more factories, 1 reactor, 1 tech lab. And then we can go another, you know, 3 factories like you added later on, right? So it's not that big a shift from what you've been doing. Like if we go back here, let's take a look. Because you get up your 4 factories, because you're going double reactor so fast and you're producing out of them nonstop, your tech unit count is very, very low. And we're very reliant on things like the Widow Mines. So, you know what? The Widow Mines are pretty big there for our defense. Definitely changes things up a little bit. Bam, bam.
Yeah, I think especially at the 3rd, like the few I have planted right out. Oh, not 3rd, but 4th. Like that makes me feel so much safer. And then I can place more of my army at the point where I think he will probably attack.
Okay, so we can toy with 1 reactor, 1 tech lab out of those 2 factories. Ooh. Okay, so check this out. So the part I haven't written down in your build order, and this is just really interesting to me. I'm sorry I'm taking so long on this, but this is like something that's just really interesting to think out exactly how we want to do this, because this is fascinating. 2nd factory and gases on the natural get delayed, right? That's the big kiss shift, but there's also going to be something outside of 8 Hellions, then 3rd CC, then double gas. After 8 Hellions, we do want to swap that factory onto the tech lab, right? Unless we're just not really focusing on the siege tanks at all. I was thinking, you know, factory swaps onto tech lab, right? Which the barracks can have prepared or whatever. And then I was thinking, you know, we just basically get a cyclone, single cyclone, and then tank production nonstop, right? Out of that. Now, that does skip the Widow Mines, though, until extra factories come down.
Right. The 2nd and 3rd one, you mean?
Yeah. So, the thing here is we want to think a little bit about the function of your starport in your build. So let's take a look at your current build. And I feel like your starport's kind of just a production building / dead structure after your initial opening. So
it's pretty dead.
I'm kind of thinking like we could actually just cut the starport out of your build. As cool as the medevac or the liberator is, I'm like toying with this concept where we can like add it a lot later kind of thing. Like we'd still get it, but just much later, because this sort of timing he does here, and this is not the most well executed because of those early marauders I was talking about. Like he should have a few Vikings, another Raven, maybe a third tank. And this would be such a scary attack. And this is the sort of attack I'm worried about for you. Because, like, if he had another Raven, he dropped, like, 3 auto turrets here as well or something. It's like, whoa, this gets so scary for us. And your starport's not helping that much. So even with, you know, okay, cool, you've got some siege tanks out of this factory, without actually having something like, you know, Widow Mines to slow it down or a Cyclone to start picking away at him as he's moving forward. Like, if you started picking off units from out in the middle of the map with a Cyclone, would be really awesome, right? That starport costs a lot.
Liberator for something like this.
It can work, but if they've got a few Vikings or a few Marines, you know, it can get focused down really quickly. So it's a pretty big gamble in terms of what it can do. Like, I would actually rather it be on the other side of the map, sieging up a mineral line and hopefully pulling their attention away and murdering their workers. And then if we kill 20 workers and we can pull 20 workers and lose them in the fight defending, you know, like... I think that's the best way a Liberator contributes to our defense, is it makes it more okay for us to lose a lot of stuff.
That's kind of funny, but I see what you're saying, yeah.
Do you want to try? Yeah, I mean, we could totally try actually just getting the second factory instead of the starport, give up the Liberator pressure. Now, the problem with that is you are going to be more Hellion run-by focused and that sort of thing. You won't have the option of dropping in the main. But I think this is a cool variation we can explore a little bit as well. So I'm gonna write some new notes for this one as well, just below this one.
Right.
Okay.
And at least in TvZ, I definitely do Barracks Factory Starport, just so I can get a Viking out to pick off Overlords and a Liberator.
And there isn't the same sort of scary push, so just getting a siege tank out protects you in that matchup better, and I'm okay with it, because like a tank on the high ground shuts down a lot of that Roach Ravager Ling stuff, right? In this matchup, the Raven, them having their own siege tanks, it means, you know, the siege tank on the high ground here didn't really do anything for you during that entire fight, right? Like, your siege tank was just chilling up in the main that whole time, like, I'm helping, guys. And thankfully, you know, we held on. But, like, I think another variation that we can try here, and I really reckon this would be super cool, is replace Starport with second factory, right?
Basically, next production building will be a starport.
Oh, you know what? You could even do like a 1-gas opening. Oh, that would be okay. This is exciting me because this is a dirty build. So
I like how you're doing like crunching all the numbers in your head and you're like, numbers check out. I did the math.
I'm like, because if you're giving up the flexibility of the aggression, right? This is the logic. You don't have a medevac or a lib to hit the main. Your opponent can get away with being a greedy shitbag, right? So we want to be a bit of a greedy shitbag to put on pressure ourselves, right? Pressure isn't always aggressive. It could be, well, we're getting insanely fast third command center and then exploding into our production and our upgrades, right? And that basically says, hey, you need to come do damage to me or you need to be greedy yourself, right? So that's a really cool way to do this. So what we can do, because you're focusing so much on Hellions as well, so mineral intensive, like what are we even using our gas for in this opening stage? Let's go back to the 3-minute 30, 4-minute 30 mark. Let's look at your gas count. I feel like we're going to be floating quite a bit here.
I actually feel like I wasn't floating too much gas. Funny enough.
Let's take a look. Yeah, we got like 350 gas here though. Yeah, so even with the lib's very gas heavy, but you can see there's a lot of gas sitting there, right? And whilst it's not crazy, like it's not super inefficient, but we can definitely tune that down, right? We can be like 200, 300 gas shorter this whole early game, and it would be totally fine. Like you can see that your gas count is just always a little bit more than you need it to be, and that's with things like a very fast blue flame, which is not like the highest priority upgrade. Like it's nice, but it's really not that high priority. Yeah.
Oh, I kind of treat it like stem because I built so many Hellions, and it's kind of like, you know, the stem from the Hellions or whatever, the analog.
And I think that'll be more important if you get a fast third, because then you've got even more minerals, which means you can like really commit to even more Hellions and mines faster. Because of, remember, it's that mineral focused nature of reacted factory production. So your upgrades will be kicking in a little bit later, but you'll have so many more units to use them with, right? So like for instance, this game, remember, there was this big fight. I don't think Blue Flame was finished when he did this push, or maybe it just finished in time, actually? Oh, looks like it kicked in.
Barely.
It kicked in.
Yeah.
Okay. Doesn't really help much, though, right? He's got like 6 Marines in there, so it didn't actually do anything in this engage, really.
Right. And it only benefits light against light.
Yeah, so those Marines are the only units that take bonus damage from the Hellions there. So like a lot of these pushes are like a Cyclone, 2 tanks, 2 Ravens, 3 Vikings, something like that. And it's like, oh, damn, Blue Flame doesn't actually make your army any stronger. Having an extra 4 Hellions does, right? So having more minerals does. So this is important. So what we're going to do, skip second gas.
Yeah.
Factory on Reactor and Hellion production as standard.
Wait, skip the second gas in the main?
Yeah, that's the whole point, man. It's a 1 gas opening. You're going to get a third CC down at like 3 minutes 30. You're going to have like the dirty fast third command center.
Oh shit, that's so early.
Yeah, like even earlier than that. Probably
I'm
now.
feel like so naked, maybe. If
Probably
I
like
build a
2 minutes
CC
40. Well,
that soon.
in terms of the actual timings of your defense, you'll have very similar defense, right? You will have really similar defense. As long as you're still non-stop producing Hellions, think about what your defense is in this game. You will still have these 2 Marines. You can still build a bunker. That doesn't change because you've got more minerals. It's even easier for you to afford that bunker. You're non-stop building Hellions, which is your only defense. So if we fast forward a few minutes, a lot of the time we look at that third CC and we go, oh, that's being greedy. But is it actually being taken away from our units? Now, what it's going to, potentially we could say, oh, we're not getting the Liberator. Liberator's not really a defensive unit anyway. Hellion count would be the same. In fact, you can see here there's gaps in your Hellion production at times because we forget, at other times because we don't have the minerals. And then we start a siege tank, which doesn't come out until 5 minutes 30. So if we can still have a siege tank and 6 Hellions or 8 Hellions or whatever you've got at this time,
right,
plus have a
And I
third
guess
command
to
center
your
finished,
point,
it's fine.
Since I have like 400 gas, it's effectively like, like trading some of the gas for minerals that would have paid for that third CC anyways.
Exactly. And the thing is, like, a lot of the time we get this idea of, well, if I'm delaying my gas, I'm going to be behind in upgrades and tech the whole game. Not the case. You will add your third and fourth gas even earlier, potentially. Because you've got more minerals coming in, right? And then, like, you'll grab the gases on your third so quickly. Like, your first few upgrades and tech units will be a little delayed, but then everything will be ahead. Like, you'll be getting everything. Upgrades, tech units, more production earlier for the rest of the game because you've kickstarted, right? That's how so there's a small window of this is a risky point where I have less stuff. And then past that window, we're actually safer against everything. So greed makes you safer once it kicks in, right? That's something that's very easy to forget. It sounds like a very counterintuitive point, but absolutely makes logical sense. So straight into third CC, about 230 or 240.
And I guess during that like small window, I should just be on top of my scouting.
Which you're already doing a pretty good job of, and because you're not sending the lib in as much, you'll be bouncing your Hellions around a little bit more.
Well, with this attack, I actually didn't know it was coming, so I didn't scout that one properly. But
So yeah, we should have left like a Hellion or a Marine or something outside his base, right? To see the push coming across the map.
Right.
Yeah. It always feels really good when you leave the Reaper there and then you actually notice them moving on the minimap and you go down there and you quickly like drop a grenade, hit every single Marine, like run back, drop like another one. You're like, yeah, 10 hit points of damage to every Marine in your army. And like, it's actually
then I go back to
impactful.
my main, I have like 2,000 minerals.
Yeah, as long as it doesn't come at the cost of that. Oh my
But
god.
You know, I delayed him by like 5 seconds. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah.
Oh my god.
I think that would have been really good to like leave a Reaper, Marine, or Hellion.
So what we're doing, straight into third CC, 2 minutes 40. Take a look at your document. Ignore the gameplay since we're talking about an entirely imaginary scenario. Second gas in main right after that third CC. Then we'll go second factory immediately, with Tech Lab. So kind of, I want to actually stick to the same sort of pattern you've been doing, but we're giving it an edge. Your build has an edge now with the fast third CC because more minerals, more Hellions, more mines.
Oh my god.
I think it'll come down about then. That's off the top of my head, but I think it'll be about then. Any good Terran players in chat want to tell us how quick a third CC goes down off a one gas opening? I think it's about 240. Might be a little bit later than that. We'll see, but I believe it comes down before your first 2 Hellions start. Maybe it delays them by a couple of seconds, but I think you'll have enough for it. We'll see exactly how it goes. But it could be... I'll write 240 to like 310 there. So it's somewhere in that range. But I think it's about that.
I believe that. Especially without the second gas.
Yeah, that's actually, it makes a big difference. Makes a real big difference.
Right.
So second factory and tech lab, then we'll go double gas on natural, right? Third and I like to write that as third and fourth gas, just to kind of keep track of how many gases we're up to. And then we'd probably go like maybe double armory straight away, and then like, you know, the rest of your factories. Now you're used to going second factory and then 2 more factories to go up to 4, and then more factories. I think you'll add, do you normally add, you add a 5th one individually here. Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I usually add them in like pairs, one reactor, one.
Yeah, whenever you can batch it up, it's always nice, right? Just because then your add-ons finish at the same time. Whereas it's like really easy if the game gets hectic to like forget, right? If you go back and your factory's like finishing, you start a tech lab and you're like, okay, to go back in 10 seconds to start the reactor on the next one. Oh, and I've just started another factory, so I gotta go back in 40 seconds to start another tech lab. And you're like,
Yeah.
you're gonna forget a lot of the time. So definitely something where if you can throw those factories down in pairs or triples or whatever, that's gonna be great. But basically, I'm just going to write steadily add more factories. I want you to make up your own rules on exactly what order you do those in and try to make a pattern, try to do it consistently, find what works for you. But this is really nice because you're going to have that great production up, and you're going to be able to invest Hellion production into mine production, same as you normally do. So yeah, you're going to be able to be like, okay, well, what's keeping me safe? It's this non-stop Hellion mine production. And whilst, you know, you can look at it and be like, wow, they can push through Widow Mines with a Raven and a Siege Tank sieging up. It's like, yeah, like it takes them a while to get through. The Widow Mines buy a lot of time at the very least, right? And then you've got a tank or 2 out, you've got 12 Hellions, and everything starts to roll together real nice. So I think this will be a really cool third CC variation that gives you a real edge. And when you're getting used to it, you'll probably die. Oh yeah, that's a good idea. When do you think it should squeeze into that build? Because I'm you know, making this build up as I go, so I think you can probably make that decision as well. What do you reckon?
Probably after second factory and third and fourth gas.
Sounds like a good idea. Yeah, maybe with the double armory. It's like double armory plus starport or something like that, or maybe.
Yeah, that sounds good. And it'll be easier to remember whenever I can like batch parts of the build together.
Yeah, I think that should be pretty nice. And the thing is, you might look at this build and be like, you know what? I actually want to just go single armory with this opening because upgrades aren't as important for, you know, mass Hellion or something like that. And I want to have more units out and I get the second armory later or something like that. Like, you can obviously adapt this. Maybe you realize there's just not enough gas to go starport and double armory. But yeah, write down double the starport in that build wherever you want. And wait, didn't you write double armory and starport? I thought you wrote that down already.
Oh, here? Oh, no.
Yeah, write it down.
Oh. I think, double army. This one, right? The third.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yep.
Awesome. We are running out of time. We've gone overtime, in fact. That's fine. We did start a bit late today. That's okay. So we're going to have to round up. But this was a really good session for a first session where it's good to just kind of chat about things. And we're talking strategy, but we're also, you know, getting to know each other a little bit in this first session. So it's good to see. I like that you know, we had this nice kind of pattern where I would talk about a concept and you'd kind of, you know, reaffirm and be like, oh yeah, because, and you'd give an example. And it's really, this is a good way to like immediately try and frame anything I say in your own words and you know, your own understanding. So I feel like we've had a good exchange of kind of ideas here.
Yeah. I tend to do that because, like, if I can justify it to myself, then it becomes that more compelling to actually do it.
Exactly.
Versus, like, you listen to a good idea from someone, you're like, oh yeah, that sounds good, and you never actually do it.
Exactly.
Like
It's, I mean, the power. That's like the power of, you know, arguing for an idea is so powerful as well, right? Like if you try to convince someone of why your build's good on like a forum with a bunch of angry neckbeards who are going to tell you why your build's shit because innovation doesn't do it, there is nothing that makes you understand a build better and, you know, than arguing for it. And sometimes you find out you're wrong about some shit as well. You're like, actually, this build is kind of trash in this aspect, but it's still really good in this other aspect, which I like. Always good to just kind of discuss and understand those ideas better. I love these Widow Mines, man. So sick. Oh, dude, do you have a blanket Widow Mines on like the carpet bombs on top of their army?
Oh, you mean like walk into the army?
You drop them out of the medevacs. Like you boost in like 3 or 4 medevacs and then you burrow them as you drop them. Have you ever done that?
No, I've never done that. It's like the same thing you would do to their mineral line, but to their army.
Yeah, it's like the funnest way to deal with brood lords. A little bit like, how the fuck do you beat brood lords? And you're like, well, actually, the funnest way is if you have drilling claws to just like drop 20 widow mines on top of them. It can also
awesome. Yeah.
it can kill carriers. It can kill anything. If your opponent doesn't react fast enough, it's like the funniest way. It's very hit or miss. But if you ever play a guy, you're in a mech versus mech battle, he doesn't really have a big air army. He's just got like a ton of tanks. Is like, or maybe only a Thor or two. It's like really funny to just drop like 20 widow mines on top of siege tanks and just kill everything.
I see. Yeah, I'll have to try that. I don't normally go medevac, so that's
More of a fun play than a super reliable play. It's not going to be the most consistent. Just something to throw out. Awesome, man. I think try the new variation here. In terms of TvP, as you want to solidify that, practice that build order I linked, similar to what you've been doing, but we're committing a little bit less to the stim timing. Now, that being said, I still want you to be a dumbass in your TvP. You're always attacking with that stim timing. When I say you're committing less, I mean you're committing less with your build. When you go, you're still going straight to the natural, straight across the map. You're stimming in and you're trying to kill as much shit as possible because you're focusing on learning the build. We don't want you to be focusing, should I commit? Should I not? We don't want you to be umming and ahhing in your practice. We want you to be super decisive. So just commit to the stim timing, focus on learning the macro, and then focus on building up to that next attack with the libs, the mines, and the bio that I was talking about. Save replays where it goes terribly wrong. Write down your questions where you go, Pig, your advice was shit. It doesn't work, especially with this new mech opening. I really want you to try this one gas version to see how it goes. Outside of that, I did write down the other third CC, the other variation above that. Maybe just focus on
the TvP build you have is called the TvP 3 racks macro opening, right? That's yours.
Yes. That's
okay,
it.
cool.
Yeah. I wouldn't. With where I've written potential opening shift in the document, maybe don't practice that one just yet, because I think focus on the one gas build and see how that goes, and let's focus on that one so we're nice and focused and we're not learning too many things at once.
Okay, so the new third CC variation.
Yes.
With the one gas, gotcha.
Yeah,
cool.
And
yeah, I'll probably do my AI thing and do that over and again.
And if gas doesn't line up, write it down. If you want to make a small change, just write it all down, and then we can go over those changes in the next one, and we can make it a really tight build.
Okay, sweet, sounds good.
Awesome, man. In terms of TVZ, I think stick with the build that you were doing, and we can go over that in a follow-up session. We don't want to change everything at once, right?
Right.
You definitely can do a fast third CC. Mass Hellion mine is actually one of the funniest ways. I occasionally win a game against a low GM player with Mass Hellion and Mass Mine, just Mass Reactor Factory, where you just build command centers all over the map, and it is always hilarious when it works. But yeah, I reckon just stick with whatever's been working for you, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I think I'll keep that roughly the same, just because I need a bit more defense and that starport for the Viking and maybe even Liberator. But for their TvT, this one sounds pretty promising.
Awesome, man. Well, look forward to the next one. So just shoot me a message and email whenever you spend a day or two practicing, see how it goes, and just shoot me a message when you want to set up the next one.
Awesome. Sounds great. Yeah, will do.
All right, man. Have a great night.
Hey, thank you so much. You too.
Catch you later, man.
See ya.